College campuses have been going crazy the last few weeks. Well, guess what? They've been planning it for months, and the same people that are funding Joe Biden's campaign have been funding the anarchy on college campuses. We're going to expose it all. Plus, something else you want to know, an ISIS terrorist has been hanging out in America for about 2 years. How did it even happen, and where do they find him? And finally, Joe Biden knows how to deal with our budget. Apparently, you just print a bunch more money, and his top guy is all over it. It's Verdict with Senator Ted Cruz, and it starts right now. Senator, nice to be with you in person. There are two big stories, and we've been covering this on Verdict. You and I have been uncovering what has been happening on college campuses when it comes to the money behind it. There's two big stories that have just broken. One of them, Wall Street Journal, about the organizing and the planning for this. And then there's also about the money. And shocker, right? Democrats who are giving money to Joe Biden's campaign for president are the same people giving money to the anarchy on college campuses. And now we know all of it.
Well, that's exactly right. And let me stop and say it is striking that the corporate media is covering this now. So Verdict, we have been covering for 2 weeks now, following the money. Where is the money coming from behind these protests? And the corporate media has largely ignored that until this weekend. This weekend, Politico wrote a major story highlighting the money behind these pro-Hamas protests and linking it in particular that the people who are writing the checks are the same people that are writing big checks to Joe Biden, same people writing big checks to Democrats across the country. So who are they? Well, number one, George Soros. And we talked about George Soros a lot. Two of the main organizers behind the protests are a group called Jewish Voices for Peace, and If Not Now are the two groups. Jewish Voices for Peace describes itself as anti-Zionist. So in other words, they're anti-Israel.
Right.
Both are supported by the Tides Foundation. The Tides Foundation is really a nexus of all sorts of horrible, evil, racist, leftist, communist, Marxist garbage. That's the Tides Foundation. And the Tides Foundation was seeded by George Soros and also by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So Bill Gates steps in, joining with George Soros, saying, let's fund these anti-Semites. The Tides Foundation has given nearly $500,000 to Jewish Voices for Peace over the last 5 years. But not just them. Rockefeller. David Rockefeller Jr., who sits on the board of the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, gave $300,000 to the Tides Foundation. So that's another one. David Rockefeller, you've got Bill Gates, Melinda Gates, you've got George Soros, and then yet another one, and other groups involved are backed by a foundation funded by Susan and Nick Pritzker. Billionaires, huge Democrat donors. Susan and Nick Pritzker gave $6,600 to the Biden Victory Fund just a few months ago and gave more than $300,000 during the 2020 Joe Biden campaign. These are the blue-blooded royalty, the billionaires who fund the Democrat Party, who fund Joe Biden, and they are the cash behind these anti-American zealots who hate Israel and who hate Jews and are physically, violently harassing Jews right now, paid for by the donors of the Democrat Party.
And it's not just that. We also now know even more about the planning behind this, and I want to get to that in a second. But there are so many Verdict listeners that have been asking, how can you get involved and how can you help the people in Israel? Well, I want you to know about IFCJ. IFCJ is helping on the ground in Israel right now. Since October the 7th, the attacks on Israel have increased with Iran and its proxies that launched an attack of hundreds of drones and missiles. And Israelis are living with the harsh reality of terror every single day. The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews is on the ground addressing all of the urgent needs. And that's why I want you to work with them. They are doing incredible work because they're helping the people there with literal bomb shelters, emergency bomb shelter kits that are being delivered immediately to those in desperate need. Your life-saving donation today will help assemble and place these kits with enough food and life-saving emergency supplies for 20 people huddled in a bomb shelter. Now, the cost to put together and distribute these kits is $290 each, and your gift will help save lives. And thanks to a matching challenge gift from a generous IFCJ supporter, your gift will double in impact to help provide twice the support needed on the ground. So if you want to help the people of Israel, all you have to do is call this number to make your gift. 888-488-IFCJ. That's 888-488-IFCJ. Or you can go online to supportifcj.org to give. That's one word, supportifcj.org to give now. So, Senator, you look at this money, and the question that you have to ask is, why are they giving so much money to what we're seeing unfold on TV?
Because this is who they are. They hate Israel. This is the left wing of the Democrat Party. It is profoundly anti-Israel, and sadly, it is profoundly anti-Semitic. To be clear, the people who are chanting at these protests, they're not just targeting Israel, they're targeting all Jews. Look, we saw horrifically at the University of Washington the radicals chanting to Jews, go back to the ovens. I mean, that is horrific. That is who they are.
And you notice the media didn't cover that.
Well, of course not. But what is fascinating also, you know what the media is also not covering?
What's that?
Will any Democrats give the money back? Every Democrat who's cashed a check from George Soros, every Democrat who's cashed a check from Bill Gates or Melinda Gates, every Democrat who's cashed a check from Rockefeller or who's cashed a check from Pritzker. And by the way, you are talking about, in all likelihood, hundreds or thousands of Democrats. We're talking millions of dollars. This is their bankroll. Will the Democrats give the money back? And if they won't, is it because they support what their billionaire donors are saying? I'll tell you, you want a sense of how remarkable this moment is? Even CNN is being forced to cover it. Take a look at Jake Tapper asking about this bombshell Politico report.
Politico has a story out this morning noting that a lot of the multimillionaires and billionaires funding the most explicitly anti-Israel groups, ones that think Israel has no right to exist, that are active on campuses, that these groups are funded by big Biden donors, the Pritzkers, the Gateses, George Soros, David Rockefeller Jr. Should they stop funding these groups? Are they causing unrest for the American people?
Well, let me say this. I think that everybody, as the president has said, needs to kind of get focused in on the very core principles of what our Constitution allows and what our Constitution protects. And that is this. Everybody has a right to protest, but they have to protest peacefully. If they're protesting violently, that has to end. There's no place for that. There's no place for anti-Semitism. There's no place for Islamophobia.
There's something interesting in there. Jake Tapper names all those names. You notice he doesn't look down at a piece of paper of all these donors. He doesn't go to something on the screen to go, let's put these names out there. He knows all of these Democratic donors by name, by memory, because they are the Democratic Party.
Well, and understand, that was, for those of y'all that are listening to audio, that was Jake Tapper on CNN, on State of the Union, their Sunday show. And he's asking Mitch Landrieu, who's one of the national co-chairs of the Biden campaign. So he's there as a surrogate, as a spokesman for the Biden presidential campaign. And he says, why are your donors funding this? And listen to the dodge. Look, people go on TV often to spin, but that spin was really transparent. What's he say? Well, people have a free speech right.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right. You know what? The Nazis have a free speech right. The Klan has a free speech right. Does that mean that the Biden campaign is happy being funded by the Nazis and the Klan? Do you find what they are saying horrible and noxious and bigoted and wrong? And are you in disagreement with it enough to say, I will not accept money from the people who are bankrolling this anti-Semitic garbage? Not a word of that from the Biden campaign. And by the way, how many senators, how many House members have taken money from these same people? And to the best of my knowledge, none of them have returned a penny, and none of them plan to, because they're certain the media will give them a free pass and they can keep cashing the checks. Not only that, I promise you Democrats nationally are counting on George Soros to keep giving them millions right up through Election Day. And the fact that he's funding these protests on campus, That doesn't bother them at all.
Yeah, not only was the money organized, and clearly they knew they had a bankroll to do what they're accomplishing right now. This other bombshell article talks about the organization, the planning, which is incredibly eerie to what we just witnessed in Israel as well, with organizing and planning of the attacks there.
Yeah, now, so this came out in the Wall Street Journal this weekend, so we had two big stories. Wall Street Journal reported that the anti-Israel, anti-Jewish protests on campuses were the results of months of training and planning and encouragement by longtime activists and left-wing groups. And for example, let's take Columbia University. Wall Street Journal reports in the weeks and months leading up to the encampment and occupation, student organizers began consulting with groups like the National Students for Justice in Palestine, veterans of campus protests, and former Black Panthers. These organizers researched past protests over Columbia's expansion into Harlem, went to a community meeting on gentrification and development, and studied parallels with the fight over land between Palestinians and Israelis. They also held a, quote, Resistance 101 training event at Columbia back in March. Now, the administration barred the event twice, but Columbia students held it anyway, virtually, and the Columbia president suspended several of those students for doing so, but that didn't stop what they were planning. And to give you a sense, so the National Students for Justice in Palestine, NSJP, has been around for roughly 2 decades and has more than 300 chapters across the United States. And understand who these people are. NSJP, on their posts on X, routinely refers to police officers as pigs. So that's who they are. They're not hiding who they are. And they also provide, quote, friendly advice to students protesting on social media. So take a look. This is the first of 2 different posts.
One hell of a list of friendly advice, right?
Some friendly advice. They include things like wear comfortable clothes you feel comfortable moving in, running shoes, and layers for the weather. Bring water, an energy bar, and a bandana in case of surveillance. And then they provide what they call a diversity of tactics, which they say, quote, everyone is free to support the causes they see fit. We don't police each other's actions or snitch on each other to pigs or to the media. That's their very kind advice. At the same time, we take care not to endanger others with our actions. Now, here's their second bit of friendly advice they put up. And they say, among other things, in the second post, they encourage people to take to the streets and to stay together because, according to them, quote, pigs will work to split us apart, force us onto the sidewalk, kettle us, and snatch people. And they go on to say, quote, if someone is arrested, don't linger too long, or pigs will kettle the march, free the comrade, or else get their name and birth date for jail support and keep it moving.
This is a lot like Black Lives Matter when they were like, hey, you get arrested, don't worry, we're going to bail you out. We've got funds for this. We plan for you guys to get arrested. We'll get you out as fast as you can. And the protesters know this.
Well, they do, and in fact, here, take a look at one protester talking about the risk of being arrested.
What will you guys do when the police come right in here and, end up maybe handcuffing people and arresting them?
We'll do what we always done. We'll get arrested, just like the criminals in the subway. They always right back out in 24 hours.
24 hours in New York City. That's right. That's about correct.
I mean, at least they're honest. They're like, we're not afraid of getting arrested. We know we're out in 24 hours.
Now, understand what he said also there. We'll do what we always do. This is not his first rodeo.
Yeah.
And one of the things, there's another piece of stunning news that broke, which is about half of the protesters on these encampments are not affiliated with the universities in any way, shape, or form. So let me give you some of the stats. Columbia and City College of New York, an estimated 134 out of 282 demonstrators arrested last Tuesday had zero affiliation with the 2 New York colleges. So about half. City College of New York, 102 of the 173 arrested were unaffiliated with the campus. University of Texas at Austin, 45 of the 79 arrested last Monday, 56%, had no affiliation with the school. And here's some of the examples of non-student protesters found on these campuses. New York City internal medicine doctor Fernando Bobis, 42 years old. Not
a
student. Known anti-Israel protester Jesse Pape, 47 years old. Booked on 2 counts of assault after protesting at City College of New York. Previously arrested at a pro-Palestinian rally outside of Columbia in February.
24 hours, you're out.
James Carlson, 40 years old, arrested at Columbia on burglary charge, previously involved in protests that blocked local bridges and tunnels. So understand, this is organized, this is planned, and about half the people there are not students, but instead are agitators, are protesters, are radicals, are Marxists, are anarchists. I don't know what they are, but it ain't good, and they're not students in the school.
And they're getting paid.
They're clearly getting paid. And who are they getting paid by? Well, we just walked through who they're getting paid by, Joe Biden's top donors.
Yeah.
So the Biden campaign is funding the radicals to come onto campus, to disrupt the campus. And let me actually, this is actually an amazing article. It's entitled, "The Micro Intifada, How American Protesters Are Being Trained in Militancy." Students participating in the Gaza Solidarity encampments at universities across the country are being taught to become militants, according to 9 manuals obtained by the Free Press. Many of the manuals, which are being shared via phone group chats with students across the country, encourage, quote, militancy and instruct protesters to break laws, seize buildings, vandalize them, and then use tactics to evade police detection and arrest. One guide, called the, quote, de-arrest primer, teaches protesters to physically resist arrest, or in some cases to assault police officers or throw projectiles at them to protect fellow comrades. Let's be clear, these are communists.
Yeah.
They call each other comrade. From arrest. Quote, each de-arrest is a micro-intifada, which can spread and inspire others till we may finally shake off this noxious ruling order altogether. The noxious ruling order. Let's be clear, they're communists and anarchists who Joe Biden's top donors are funding. Another manual, it's entitled the Do-It-Yourself Occupation Guide, contains detailed drawings on how to break into buildings using tools like crowbars, clamps, metal cables, chains, bolt cutters, and a miniature saw known as an angle grinder. And here, you can see right here, it says entering the building. First thing listed, it has a nice little painting.
Now, again, this is one of the manuals. You're reading directly from the manual.
I'm reading from the manual. Entering the building, angle grinder. Use an angle grinder to cut through locks, bolts, and chains. Cordless models are obviously preferable. Reliable and capable, but also noisy and time-consuming. Second thing they say to bring, bolt cutters. Use bolt cutters to clip padlocks, lock boxes, and fencing. The 18-inch length will perform most tasks well and fit discreetly in a backpack or a messenger bag. Some bolt cutters can fold down to smaller size. Crowbar. And by the way, it has a helpful drawing of a crowbar in case you're just really dumb.
First time they've ever worked, so it makes sense.
Use the straightener end of a crowbar to pry open windows and doors, such as in the hand-over-hand method. Use the slightly angled part as your fulcrum, pushing it against the window frame or door jamb. Use the U-shaped end of the crowbar to remove the cylinder from a deadbolt. Use the curve as your fulcrum, pushing it against the door. Do not pry towards your face, because you guys are morons and one of you is going to take out an eye.
Yeah.
That part I ad-libbed, but it really should say that.
Yeah.
Use the weight of your body instead of the strength of your arms. Instructions show how to barricade doors with heavy furniture. Create a shield against police using trash cans, rope, sheets of cardboard.
By the way, did you see those trash can shields this week? Did you see those? They were using at one university. They were plastic pieces of a trash can. They go running at the police with them. And I'm like, this is amazing to watch. It's literally Rubbermaid trash can shields.
So you ever read the Darwin Awards?
Yes.
There is some point at which these spoiled, nurtured little communists living off of daddy's trust funds who don't understand what happens. Those are Darwin Awards waiting to happen.
Couldn't agree more.
There's a drawing here on removing a deadbolt cylinder. And we saw that this is, in fact, exactly what they're doing on the campuses. And I want you to watch now how they're doing this. I want you to watch this video. This is a video that was on X that a citizen journalist filmed at UCLA. And watch the radicals implementing what they have been trained, what they have been taught, what they have been instructed. Watch this.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you repeat that?
You're not allowed to film in here.
By what statute? By what California statute? The First Amendment?
By the rules of the encampment.
Okay, so who's making those and enforcing those?
The SJP.
The SJP is telling me what I can and can't do.
Stop. All right, now I want you to watch several things. Number one, Soy Boy here is wearing his UCLA hoodie.
Yeah.
Big old sunglasses and a mask because, you know, he believes in what he's fighting for so much. Dear God, he doesn't want anyone to know. Number two, you have a citizen journalist coming onto like the square at UCLA.
Yeah.
It opened like this is
private property for these guys just take over.
And he says, you're not allowed
to film,
to be here. And the guy quite rightly says, well, why not? And he says, by the rules of SJP. Remember, we went into SJP. Yeah. That's the group that George Soros is funding, that Bill and Melinda Gates are funding, that all of these Biden donors are funding. The rules of SJP. And who are they? They just declare, look, you don't have the ability to declare yourself, I am the police. I will set the rules. It's actually the same strategy. You remember the Chaz and the Chop?
Chaz and Chop, yeah. It happened in Seattle.
The autonomous zone where these little Marxists say, I'm a warlord and I declare the rules. So just watch, and they're claiming authority they do not have. Watch.
In the encampment.
Huh?
To be in the encampment, you have to follow
So you guys purchased this land from UCLA?
No,
Lydia, get over here right now. You purchased this land from UCLA?
Security.
Lydia, do you hear what I just said? You need to stay next to me because these punk ass security guards is in my face. Oh, for real?
No, right here.
Oh, it's this way?
No, this way.
Oh, come on, Lydia, get over here.
Please head this way.
Get over here, Lydia.
Can you please just head this way, sir?
Nah, I'd rather head this way.
Sir, you're causing commotion. We're trying to keep it peaceful
sorry,
in here.
I'd rather head this way. Thanks, sir.
We're trying to keep it peaceful here.
So am I. I'm a very peaceful person.
Can you please just...
No, I'd rather head this way.
You're not following everyone.
Right, I'm not going to follow anything you're saying, bro. I don't even know you. You didn't even introduce yourself to me. You're wearing sunglasses and a mask. Yeah. You look like you're about to go rob a bank, bro. I don't have to listen to nothing you're saying, bro. Look like you're about to hand a note to a bank teller and tell him, give me all the money.
I'm gonna have to ask you to leave.
And I'm gonna have to answer and say, no, I don't have to go anywhere. You're gonna wait for a lead and do what mommy says. Okay? You're gonna do what she told you to do because you're a good soldier. So follow orders, you know what I'm saying, and do what you were told because we're over here documenting right now. So SJP, FJP, the only JP I know is JP from Milwaukee. You know what I'm saying? JP from Milwaukee. That's about it. I know JP from Milwaukee. That's about it. Listen to your mommy. She said mask on. Mask up, kids. Mommy says put mask on. It's mask
Hey,
time.
guys, make sure your masks are on. There's someone filming.
It's an emergency. Masks on immediately. Mask up. Emergency.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for cooperating with SJP orders.
He keeps saying SPG, but not only that, I do have to give them credit. At least they're wearing masks to cover their faces from people knowing who they are, not just from like some crazy COVID world that they're living in.
Probably half of them are knuckleheads enough that they think it's COVID. But,
fair point.
But it is clear, as the woman is calling out, oh, there's someone filming, put your masks on. Look, when you wear a mask to hide who you are, it is, as he says, it's like a bank robber. That is, in fact, what criminals do. And you know, when the guy says, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You know what? Someone says that if, say, it's a private establishment, if you're at a restaurant, the proprietor can come and say, excuse me, sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave because they have legal authority to ask you to vacate the premises. These clowns have no legal authority to ask anyone to vacate the premises. He has exactly as much right to be on that plaza as they do. It's an open plaza. But you know what? UCLA is ceding that authority to them, is letting them physically block him, stand in his way. There are multiple videos. There was a video of a Jewish student trying to go on campus at MIT, which we may show in another podcast, where they physically block him and prevent him from doing so because he is Jewish. And again, the MIT administration is complicit with it. Finally, an MIT police officer accompanies him on there, but only after he repeatedly asserts his rights. What do you mean that they can tell me, no, because you're Jewish, you're not allowed to be there? They are claiming authority they don't have, but the UCLA administrators, like the Columbia administrators, like the NYU administrators, like the administrators at MIT and so many of these other schools,
They're allowing them.
They are allowing them.
It's incredible. I do think one side note, isn't it funny how every time when they take over, they set up a little border? For Democrats that are anti-border, they sure do love borders around their encampments and rules and regulations and laws, and you can't film here, you can't do this. But in the whole country, they're like, no, just keep coming in over the border as much as you want to. Let me tell you about our friends over at Blackout Coffee real quick. If you are like me and you're just sick and tired of giving your money to woke organizations, you probably know when I'm talking about coffee, there's a lot of leftist coffee companies out there. That's one of the reasons why I switched to Blackout Coffee, because it is a premium cup of coffee from an amazing American company you're going to love. Now, Blackout Coffee is 100% committed to conservative values, from sourcing the beans to the roasting process, customer support and shipping. They embody true American values, and they accept no compromise on taste or quality. If you've never tried Blackout Coffee and you want to start your day every morning with a premium cup of coffee, then you got to try them by going to blackoutcoffee.com/verdict. Now, I'm going to save you 20% off your first order just by using the promo code VERDICT at checkout. blackoutcoffee.com/verdict. Use the coupon code VERDICT for 20% off your first order. Be awake, not woke, and get a premium cup of amazing conservative coffee every single day. That's blackoutcoffee.com/verdict, promo code VERDICT. Senator, I want to move to another story that also is a very concerning story. We've talked about this and have been exposing not just the number of illegal immigrants coming across the southern border, but specifically terrorists that are coming across our northern and southern border that are on the terrorist watch list. And there are now new concerns because of a man directly tied to ISIS that was roaming the country for a couple of years.
Yeah, I've been saying for a long time now that we are at a greater risk of a major terrorist attack right now than we have been any time since September 11th, that our open border is an invitation for terrorists to come and murder Americans. And we just had a really chilling report about an individual who is reported to be affiliated with ISIS, who the Biden administration apprehended and then just let go. And he was allowed to live in America for 2 years. Now, the facts are, this is an individual, a 33-year-old named Javakir Atoev, who crossed the border into Arizona, and he was apprehended by Border Patrol. But when he was apprehended by Border Patrol, Joe Biden released him, let him go, said, we got him, let's let him go. Then, in May of 2023, so this was February 22, he came in. In May of 2023, Uzbekistan put out an international notice that this individual was wanted in his home country for his alleged affiliation with ISIS. So that's in 2023. Then in March of 2024, so a year goes by after Uzbekistan said, hey, watch out for this guy. We have evidence that he's affiliated with ISIS. Nothing happens for a year. Then March of 2024, the U.S. government is reviewing his application for asylum. So they're preparing to grant him asylum. And they discover Uzbekistan's notice then, nearly a year later. He was living in Maryland at the time, in Baltimore. And it wasn't until April 17th, 2024, that ICE finally arrested him in Baltimore. He's currently in custody in Pennsylvania, awaiting trial in immigration court. So, from 2022, February of 2022, when he crossed illegally into this country, until April of 2024, when he was finally arrested, the Biden administration was complicit in an individual who is reported to be directly tied to ISIS being released in America. And by the way, if you don't trust what I'm saying on it, here's NBC News.
Tonight, among the record wave of migrants crossing the southern border, a suspected ISIS member who lived freely in the U.S. for nearly 2 years. 2 U.S. officials tell NBC News. 33-year-old Jakovir Atoyev of Uzbekistan crossed into Arizona in February 2022, where he was apprehended and vetted by both Customs and Border Protection and ICE. He was not on the U.S. terror watch list, and he was released into the U.S., those sources tell us. Then, in May 2023, Uzbekistan put out an international alert saying that Atoyev was affiliated with ISIS and wanted there. But it took nearly a year for U.S. officials to figure out the suspected ISIS member was living freely here in the U.S. U.S. officials tell us DHS made the alarming discovery after reviewing Atoyev's application for asylum. Shortly after DHS connected the dots, ICE arrested him here in Baltimore just 2 weeks ago. Former Homeland Security officials tell us his case raises red flags about the vetting process for migrants after they cross the border.
There's two things that worry me, and I want your take on this. Number one, it's almost like the media is worried the same way you are that there's a real chance of a major terrorist attack. We've seen warnings from Director Wray at the FBI and others who are saying they're concerned even about attacks that would mimic what we saw against the people in Israel. But it's also like they're trying to normalize the idea that, yeah, there's a lot of terrorists in America. And if something does happen, it's like, yeah, we knew this. We covered it. We talked about it. Maybe you shouldn't be as outraged.
Well, if you want to be outraged, listen to what Chris Wray, the administrator of the FBI, is saying about the risk we have of a terror attack right now in the United States.
From an FBI perspective, we are seeing a wide array of very dangerous threats that emanate from the border. There is a particular network that has where some of the overseas facilitators of the smuggling network have ISIS ties that we're very concerned about and that we've been spending an enormous amount of effort with our partners investigating.
Ray said a key word there, coming across the border.
Yeah.
Like he's telling you how they're doing it. So if he knows this, and that means I'm sure he's given the same briefing he just gave America to the President of the United States of America, why would you not then close the border if this is what you know is coming across the border? And my second question is, after 9/11, I remember like we learned very quickly how the terrorists were able to use certain loopholes and things to get into America, and we squeezed down those instantly. I'm worried that even if there is a terrorist attack, they're still going to keep the border open.
Yeah, look. Joe Biden doesn't care. Kamala Harris doesn't care. Chuck Schumer doesn't care. Nancy Pelosi doesn't care. I've been fighting for years to secure the border, and every Democrat is on record over and over and over again. I forced a vote on H.R. 2, which would actually end catch and release, secure the border, stop these terrorists from coming in, and every Democrat in the Senate, all of them, there are no moderates on this issue, all of them party line, vote, open borders, open borders, open borders. Every Democrat in the Senate voted to throw out the impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas to hear no evidence. They don't want to hear the evidence. They're like an ostrich plunging their head in the sand. Do not tell them about the terrorists coming into this country because they don't care about who came in yesterday and they don't care about who's going to come in tomorrow.
Well, let's talk about the numbers because that's the other part of this warning. It's not 1 or 2 or 10 or 15 or 20 that are on the terrorist watch list that we know have come across the southern border. It's an alarming number in the hundreds.
Yeah, look, when Trump was president, the number of people that were apprehended on the terror watch list coming into the country was every year in the low single digits, was 1 or 2, was a very small number. In fiscal year 2023, 169 people on the terror watch list were apprehended at our southern border, 169. This fiscal year, we're only halfway through. We already have nearly 100 who've been apprehended at the southern border again.
That are on the terrorist watch list.
On the terror watch list. And by the way, that's the southern border. The northern border, the stats, 630 terror suspects were encountered at the northern border in the last 2 fiscal years.
The New York Post breaking that aspect of the story. So it's not just, as you mentioned, the southern border. It's the northern border, which is another problem, which is, by all accounts, is even more, I guess, say open, easier to come across, many believe.
It's much larger. And if you are a terrorist if you are heeding Iran's call for global jihad against America, if you're heeding Hamas's call for global jihad against America, if you're heeding Hezbollah's call for global jihad against America, if you're heeding Palestinian Islamic Jihad's call for global jihad against America, if you're heeding ISIS's call for global jihad against America, it's not complicated. You come across the border in a place where there's not a lot of border security, where you can be one of the nearly 2 million gotaways. These are just the people who've encountered. The numbers are even more concerning of the gotaways, and the Democrats, at the end of the day, they are willfully complicit in an open-door policy to terrorists who want to harm Americans.
You've been there when Ray's been testifying, and you know Ray, the FBI director. Did Democrats ask any tough questions of him? Like, hey, we know how many are on the watch list that we've gotten, right, that were on the watch list, but do they even care about the gotaways, or is it if I don't ask, then it doesn't exist, and then I don't have to be held politically accountable for it?
Democrats will not ask a single question about illegal immigration. They will not ask a single question about gotaways. They will not ask a single question about the children being brutalized by human traffickers. They will not ask a single question about the women being sexually assaulted by human traffickers. Their approach is just hide from the issue. They don't have a defense. So they ask totally, you know what they'll ask about? White supremacists. They'll get all worked up about white supremacists. Mind you, they're not concerned at all about the anti-Semites on college campuses. Well, maybe it's because the people funding the anti-Semites are also funding those same Democrats' campaigns.
Let's talk about the political fallout of this. If, heaven forbid, there's an attack, is part of the Democrats' defense they think that the American people are too stupid to connect these dots? I mean, you see the report from NBC News. You see Christopher Wray out there warning you. You have a president that knows about it. Do they just assume that the media is going to carry water for them, that there is attack, there will be no accountability for the people that allowed for the open border policy, which allowed them to come into this country? I would be terrified if I was a Democrat running for re-election, knowing this is a real possibility and the FBI director's warning you. You would think you'd want to say something on the record that says, hey, we got to get this under control.
Ben, I honestly don't know, because they don't defend themselves. They don't present an argument. They don't present any alternative. Listen, they count on the corporate media to cover for them, to hide what they're doing. And I think many of them are naive. For them, it is all politics.
So it's not about safety or security of your family or their family or our family.
11 million illegal immigrants, and they say these are future Democrat voters, and what we care about is staying in power. And if people have to die, so be it. Because they know people are dying. Every single day, people are dying because of this open border, and the Democrats will do nothing to change it. It's who they are.
If you've got a cell phone, 99% of Americans have a cell phone. And when you use that phone, you may not realize what you're supporting with Big Mobile. Did you know that Big Mobile gives massive donations to Democratic causes, Democratic candidates, and organizations? Did you know that Big Mobile gives big money to Planned Parenthood? Well, that is why I took my cell phone and I switched to Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile is the only conservative Christian cell phone provider in the U.S. with the same exact coverage that you get right now. So you compromise nothing when it comes to quality when you switch to Patriot Mobile. Now, the number one reason why people don't switch cell phone providers is because they think it's going to take forever. That's true. It used to take a lot of time. And so people would stay because they want to go into a store and waste 2.5 hours switching. Not anymore. With technology in 2024, you can literally use your same phone you have right now and your same number, and switching is easy, and it can be done over the phone. All you got to do is go to patriotmobile.com/verdict. That's patriotmobile.com/verdict, or you can call them 972-PATRIOT. That's 972-PATRIOT. Plus, you can get free activation when you use the offer code VERDICT. That's right, free activation. Use the offer code VERDICT. Now, when you switch, here's what happens. About 5% of your bill every month is given back to causes and organizations that support free speech, religious freedom, the sanctity of life, our Second Amendment, as well as supporting our military, our veterans, and our wounded warriors. That is why I love Patriot Mobile. So make a difference with every phone call you make. Make a difference with every text you make. Make a difference by switching your phone right now to Patriot Mobile. I'm using it. I travel all the time. The coverage is phenomenal. 972-PATRIOT or patriotmobile.com/verdict. Use promo code verdict. You'll get free activation.
All right, I want to close on a lighter note.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know how many listeners of Verdict are PhD students in economics, but there's a theory called modern monetary theory. And it's a bunch of gobbledygook that is designed to basically justify big spending liberals just printing money like there's no tomorrow. And it's all sorts of fancy verbiage to explain it doesn't matter how much money you can print. You can just spend into oblivion. Everything will be fine. We can afford free everything for everybody. Well, I want you to listen, and I'm going to present this without further commentary. I want you to listen to Jared Bernstein, who is the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors in the Biden White House. So he is the top economist for Joe Biden, explaining what modern monetary theory is. And I want you just to understand this is the genius behind Bidenomics. Take a look.
The U.S. government can't go bankrupt because we can print our own money.
It obviously begs the question, why exactly are we borrowing in a currency that we print ourselves? I'm waiting for someone to stand up and say, why do we borrow our own currency in the first place?
Like you said, they print the dollar. So why does the government even borrow?
Well, again, some of this stuff gets, some of the language that some of the language and concepts are just confusing. I mean, the government definitely prints money, and it definitely lends that money, which is why the government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do? They sell bonds. Yeah, they sell bonds, right? Because they sell bonds and people buy the bonds and lend them the money. Yeah, so a lot of times, at least to my ear with MMT, the language and the concepts can be kind of unnecessarily confusing, but there is no question that the government prints money and then it uses that money to, I guess I can't really talk. I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about. Because it's like the government clearly prints money. It does it all the time, and it clearly borrows. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this debt and deficit conversation. So I don't think there's anything confusing there.
Wherever he went to college, I really think they should take back their diploma. And this is the guy who's the top economic guy at the White House.
Well, let me just say, every economic policy of Joe Biden has flowed directly from the genius and wisdom you just heard displayed.
Spending $1 trillion in this country and our government every 100 days. There's Bidenomics for you. Don't forget that we do the show Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. Make sure you hit that subscribe, auto-download button and share it on social media. Also, we do a show like this that's on YouTube. You can share that video as well on social media wherever you are. And make sure on those in-between days, if you want to keep up with what's going on in the world, grab my podcast as well, the Ben Ferguson Podcast. Download it. It's free wherever you get your podcasts. And the Senator and I will see you back here in a couple of days.